Good morning. You're listening to WPBM LP in Asheville, North Carolina, 103.7 on your dial. This is the BLAINESWORLD Show, heard each Wednesday at 9 a.m., and you can also watch us on WPBM's Facebook page. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield. I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about both people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Mel Fergenbaum and Lynda Saffell. Do I have it? Do I have it? Saffell?
Yes.
Great. And you can wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world. So if you're watching, Mel and Lynda, you can wave. Okay. And Mel, give a big wave. Mel is the owner of MC Insights Incorporated and is a facilitator of self-improvement seminars and workshops, including the signature course, the Redirect Your Life Experience, a weekend seminar of profound and shared learning experiences. Mel's work has evolved to a one-on-one mentoring program helping people with personal and professional concerns. Lynda is a holistic health practitioner who believes in treating the whole person, body, mind, emotions, and spirit for the ultimate health and well-being. Along with a fine-tuned skill of listening to the body, she incorporates strength and balance training, massage therapy, yoga and meditation, healthy eating, and yoga therapy. And I know also we'll talk about the fact that you also wrote, I guess, your first book together. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And do you have it there, Mel, handy with you, or I'll show it? But I have a copy. I'll show it. And the book is Journey of the Heart. I'm going to be talking about it. Our spiritual, great, Lynda, memoir of love and loss. And question I always ask guests when I first get them on for the first time is, in terms of growing up, Lynda, you grew up where?
In Tampa, Florida.
Okay. And in Tampa, Florida, when you were growing up as a kid, did you always know you wanted to be this author, spiritual advisor? Was that what you always wanted to do as a kid?
No, I wanted to cut hair.
Cut hair. Okay.
Cut hair and be a singer. So I sang into my hairbrush.
Okay. Did you ever do any singing?
Only karaoke, not
Okay.
professional.
And did you ever cut hair?
Only his.
Okay. Well, and you'll tell the story. So that's one of the reasons, I guess, Mel was attracted to you. You wouldn't ever have to get a haircut anymore, pay for it.
Oh,
Good,
that's right. Yeah.
good deal, Mel. And I digress, Lynda, but I had the same thing too. My wife had been a massage therapist, and I thought I'd get massages like every week, twice on Sunday. It took me 6 months before I got my first massage, so Mel, hopefully you get haircuts more often than that.
Yes, and I do a massage once a month.
Okay, good deal. And Mel, the same question, you and I met before, but where did you grow up as a kid?
I grew up in Montreal, Canada.
Okay, and when did you decide you wanted to be this author, spiritual kind of guy, had your own company? When did that come about?
Basically, in latter years, when I started to do the work that I do now, Blaine, I realized that back as a kid, I wanted to be a good boy, because when my parents said, or the elders of the family, Melvin, you're a good boy, it resonated. And so I always wanted to be a good boy and in latter years to educate and just help people. So was that my dream at the beginning? No, it wasn't. But it evolved where my passion, my purpose, helping people, educating people, and that's what I've been doing. Even in corporate America, I was teaching people how to handle a medical emergency until the paramedics arrived. I always found myself really interested in educating people.
Because I know before we met, you had a consulting practice, and that you were doing that on a corporate level. Was that what you were doing?
I was doing personal stuff in a setting. The Redirect Your Life Experience was a weekend seminar, and I also did workshops, but they were all around self-improvement, self-awareness.
Now, the Redirect Your Life seminar, I love the name of that title. Is that something you came up with on your own?
Yes, with my partner at the time, and we were educated and certified by an organization, and then in 2000, we went out on our own and incorporated MC Insights and called our seminar Redirect Your Life. When I moved to Asheville, when I started to teach in Asheville, I rebranded it to the Redirect Your Life Experience.
Okay. And I think that's when I met you. You were starting to get this off the ground, I believe, in Asheville. And so let's talk a little bit about then how Lynda came into the picture. In other words, when you were doing this originally, it was with somebody else you had said, and you weren't even with Lynda, I guess, at the time. How did Lynda get involved?
Want me to answer?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah.
I took the course in 2000. So I was a student, had never met Mel before, and I was divorced, had been divorced about 2 years, and realized that I was codependent and that I needed to learn to love myself. So someone suggested, oh, hey, there's this course and you might want to try it. So I said, why not? So I took the course. And so in the course, what happens is there's students, but then there are assistants that are also there in the room. So if you have 15, 20 students, there also might be 30 or 40 assistants that are also there. Well, once you're a student, you can come back as an assistant. So I kept coming back because I loved it. So I kept coming back, and we became friends. Our relationship was more like a little sister, big brother. For a lot of years.
And the organization had no requirements that you couldn't date your it was okay to hang out with the person teaching the course?
Well, we didn't date then. His wife Myrna was still alive then.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I was friends with her, and we would double date. If I had somebody I was dating, we'd go out to dinner together, the four of us.
Oh, so it's really cool. So you've been friends for quite some time.
We were friends for 6 years.
Wow. And then, so Mel, if you care to add to the story, so I know Lynda passed during that, not Lynda, your wife passed during that time, right?
Myrna passed in March of 06.
Right.
So again, when Lynda did the course, it was 2000. And it was after that, 5 months after that, Blaine, that we realized that there was chemistry, romantic relationship here. The two people who were most surprised were Lynda and myself.
Yeah. Now, had Myrna taught the course with you at all? Was she involved in that?
No, she was a supporter. She was there, but I had a teaching partner at the time for 10 years, and we taught the course together. Myrna was there. She was referred to back in the day as the Rock. She was grounded, and people just felt safe when she was in the course room.
Okay.
She was a string to his balloon.
Okay, very nice. Talk a little bit about the course then. So again, great title to it. What's the course all about?
The course is based on inner child, childhood belief systems. 90% of what's imprinted in the minds of adults comes from our childhood through the age of 7. Now, you can imagine when someone is growing up, they're 5 years of age, they see something, they experience something, they don't know how to interpret it, they don't have a worldly experience, they have fragmented information, they have no voice, no filters, but they decide. And some of the things that people decide is, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve. And when they grow up, this is part of their growing up, except that the inner child who made that decision at the age of 5 is still there. And the decision, the interpretation runs the adult life. So the redirected life experience was basically to find out what their belief system is, which, Blaine, occurred in 5 categories. Men are, women are, relationships are, life is, I am. You can finish those sentences, and that was their blockage. So by the end of the seminar, by the end of the weekend, they got clear as to what unconscious barriers were holding them back, both professionally and personally.
What's really cool about it then is, so if people take this weekend, the course, that they can find out a little bit, I guess, about themselves and the backgrounds, and then change as a result just after a weekend?
Yes. Yes. For example, we had a student who was married 4 times. I'm not judging 4 times, but the fact is she came to the course to find out why she was picking the wrong people. Well, what she discovered was that at the age of 3, her parents divorced, and she, at the age of 3, decided that relationships are temporary. Like every time she got married, she set it up, not consciously, but she set it up so that when that marriage failed, she got to be right.
So now, as a result of this, or one of the success stories, is she in her 5th marriage yet, or is she looking to get there?
I don't know the answer to that, but yes, to your question, to your point, the transformation over the weekend was life-changing, and people were not the same after that course because they were aware and they could do something about it.
And talk a little bit more about the transformation, because that's really cool. And you remember, I remember when I first met you, you were telling me about this and saying, hey, that's pretty amazing that after a weekend, as opposed to 10 years of therapy, people can make a change. And that's really cool. And Lynda, if I can put you on the spot a little bit, you just talk maybe a little bit about, you went for the weekend, you made it, you felt there was a change even in that weekend. Can you share a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, sure. A lot of my issues, I had a lot of the not good enough, had to do with my relationship with my mother. She was pretty much narcissistic. I can say these because she's not with us anymore.
Okay.
Narcissistic and an alcoholic. And so growing up in that environment, I was, a narcissist. No one is important as themselves. So I was always in the way. So it kind of created a lot of that not good enough. But so what I learned in the weekend, that it really wasn't me. There wasn't anything wrong with me. She was the one who had, it was her behavior, and that I was whole and complete. I was, good enough just in myself. Now, it does take some practice, and that, which is why I kept coming back course after course, and you kind of got to reinforce, like when you start a new habit. If you quit smoking, you got to practice. You got to, if you start something, a good habit, like working out at the gym, you got to get in that, 90 days to make a habit.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can start slipping back into old patterns, and then want to reinforce your good new patterns.
Did you feel after the weekend, did you feel a change was taking place already after just that one weekend?
Yes, definitely.
And how'd that feel for you?
Wonderful. I think I remember saying at you got to get up and speak at the end, that I thought it was worth triple the price I paid. And everybody was like, shh, don't say that. They might raise the price.
So when you take the weekend, Lynda, since you've gone through it, how many, do you remember how many other people were in the course you took?
I believe there were like 16 students in my course, and probably 40 or more assistants. Okay. So altogether in the room, 50 to 60 people.
And Mel, is that what typically happens when you run these courses? How many people typically sign up for them?
When we started here in Asheville, the courses were smaller.
I remember, yeah. They
were smaller. We had 5 students, February of 2010, which was our first course in Asheville. It grew from there. We may have had 20 assistants at some time. We may have had, anywhere from 5 to 10 students. It was smaller as we built it here in Asheville. In Tampa and in other parts of the country, it all depended For example, in other parts of the country, whoever invited us to come and do the seminar was responsible for getting the students and the assistants from that area. There were grads all over the country, so, and still are.
So how often do you run the course?
We ran it every month in Tampa, and we ran it every quarter in Asheville, and then in other cities when we were invited.
Now, what happened with COVID? Were you still running the course, or were you doing it virtually at
No,
all?
2017 was our last course. So in 2020, I was doing more mentoring than I was the seminar itself.
Okay, so will you be doing the seminar again?
COVID didn't affect us at all. No.
Okay. But do you see yourself offering it again in the Asheville area?
In some form or another, it's possible, Blaine. And it all depends on the community. If they want it, then, you know, in the networking that you and I did, after 8 years, we reached sort of a saturation point, and I decided to back off, take a break. And, you know, the people who have been through it really miss going back to assist.
Sounds it. We'll talk a little bit about the fact then that, so you're not offering the course right now, the seminar, but then all of a sudden you and Lynda, I guess, get the idea to write a book. How'd that come about?
Well, it's interesting. When Myrna died, there was things that happened that sounds airy-fairy, but can only happen from upstairs. And that's part of why the byline is a spiritual memoir. And so when we were to tell people what had happened, every one of them said, wow, that's interesting. You should write a book. So this is 2006. Now, I marked down some of the occurrences, but we never really got to writing the book until 2014. And in 2014, Lynda, do you want to tell Blaine what happened?
Well, a couple of the instances that had happened earlier were Myrna's kind of visits. I didn't ever actually see her, but I felt her and I could hear her. And so in 2014, what she said to me was, it's time to write the book. So I said, oh, okay.
So
I guess you write the book.
you'd been thinking about it, but hadn't decided to write it until you got that visit?
Yeah, sometimes when people would say, you should write a book, we would say, maybe we should write a book.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, okay, I guess we're going to do this.
Did Myrna also comment about Mel's haircut?
Comment about his haircuts?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. So she must like it, and that's a good sign.
Well, I was attracted to anybody who sings into a hairbrush.
Okay, good. So you decided then, I guess in 2014, to write a book. Describe the process, Lynda. What did that entail?
Well, at first, Mel Networking met a woman who helped people, Cynthia Lindeman is her name, help people to start writing their memoir. And she would do like an interview with you and then come up with a outline, like a chapter outline, and then you could take that and write it. So she did it with Mel, and then she did it with me, and then, you know, she kind of did, you know, outline for a book. And when she came to present it to us, what she said was, I think you've really got something here. I think it's a great story. I think it, you know, it could really, one, help a lot of people, but I think, you know, it could be published. And she said, and if you're interested, I would like to help you write.
Was that helpful to the process, having her kind of as your coach?
Oh yeah. So basically we had a ghostwriter at first, and she did the bones of the book for sure. She would write a chapter and then she would send it to us and we would give edits and she would, change it. So we would work with it together until we're like, okay, that chapter's good. And then we'd go on to the next one. So she would kind of put the framework together and then we would edit it together.
And also, let me add, it didn't take us 8 years to write the book. We didn't give anything up in our lifestyle to write the book. Lynda was still busy in her practice. I was still busy with seminars and workshops. So we would write, we would put it aside, we would pick it up, we would write, we would put it aside. And then in the last few months, out of 2021 into 2022, we made a push to finish. We were so close. We made a push to finish the book, and it was published and is now available.
Okay. And so what was your reaction then to, I guess, seeing the book in print finally? That must have been quite an experience for you.
Yeah, it was like,
absolutely.
wow, it's real.
Absolutely. Not only that, I mean, people have read the book and actually, and they were being honest about it. That's what we believe, because it wasn't only friends, it was strangers. And they said, wow, this is well written, or this contained more than I thought it would. And then more than one person said, I cried, I laughed, and I got angry. The book is about Myrna's death. It's about our relationship. It's about the community. It's about family. So, when a book or a movie evokes that kind of emotion, you're going to remember it. So hopefully this, as is the case with Lynda's practice and everything that I have done, if it helps somebody, we're grateful. If the book helps somebody, for example, we've gotten in touch with the National Widowers Association. If the book can be part of their resource, we'd be delighted. People have gone through it. We've gone through what we did, and not by accident. If it was for a purpose, the book may have answers for some people, as did the seminar and the workshops.
Talk about something you mentioned earlier, Mel, which I think was kind of neat. And you talk about it, it's not just a memoir, but you call it a spiritual memoir. What makes it a spiritual memoir?
Well, as Lynda said, there were visits, if I may use that word, from Myrna more than once. I'll give you a couple of other examples. My friend got into his truck one day, and his GPS came on. He didn't put it on, it just came on. And it showed him a street by the name of Wild Acres Road. And he didn't know what it was, and all he did was click off his GPS. When we had the celebration of life, the funeral for Myrna, and we were driving, the caravan was driving to the cemetery, the street that people turned on to get to the cemetery was Wild Acres Road.
Very cool.
So things like that. After the ceremony, same thing. We came back to the house, and there was a message on my phone, and the message was that our friend was skiing with her daughter. This was March. They lived in Aspen. Everybody in the lodge was wearing a Hawaiian shirt. We made the funeral a theme. Everybody, all 400 people, ski instructors, ski lift operators, everybody was wearing a Hawaiian shirt in March. And our friend said, Mel, we've lived here 23 years. You've never seen that.
Wow.
Now, you can explain it, or you can just say, hey, it's spiritual.
Let me ask you, before those couple of experiences, which are certainly unique unto themselves, Had you or Lynda had experiences like that, in your life?
I haven't. Well, I did with my mom when my mom died, but that was back in 1977.
Lynda, same thing too. Had you ever seen anything like that?
I have. We had a ghost in our house growing up. And as it turned out, well, when we were moving out of the house, this man came and he was kind of walking around the house and going in parts of the house where we didn't have stuff for sale. And then my mom was like, "Excuse me," and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I grew up in this house." And he then shared that his mother had died in the house, and her house was my bed. Her bedroom was my bedroom. So we always felt her. We called her Janet.
In I guess writing the book, talk a little bit about kind of what you guys both have learned. And I guess Mel, I'll turn to you in terms of losing a relationship. Somebody passes. What have you learned as a result of either, I guess, that process or writing the book? What have you learned?
For a long time, my mantra was surrender and trust the process. And writing that book reminded me of that many, many times. We're on our journey. My journey created a relationship with Mona that lasted 50 years. We met at the beginning of high school. 5 years after she dies, I met a relationship with Lynda. As I mentioned earlier, we were the two most surprised. So it's really, for me, just allowing things to evolve and continuing on the journey instead of trying to control it.
And Lynda, the same question, as a result of either coursework or writing the book, what have you learned?
Yeah. Well, I would say my journey through the book was really about learning to trust myself, trust my own intuition, my own inner guidance. And up until that point, I had been very outer directed. I was more guided by what other people thought of me, and so it's about, the word I understand today is sovereignty. Like learning my sovereignty and standing in my own power. So my journey through the book is that. So any readers who are interested in hearing about that, that's really my part of the story.
Did you find, or have you found that after you wrote the book, after you took the course, that people have noticed a difference in you? They'll say that you were different than you were 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Has anybody ever said that to you?
Mm-hmm.
I have.
Yeah.
What, notice in Lynda or in other people?
Absolutely.
Yourself?
Absolutely.
And it's ongoing. I feel like I've even grown in the past couple of years a lot more. It's kind of like peeling that onion layer by layer. So I become more and more my true authentic self and less of that, who you think you're supposed to be in the world.
Great. If folks want to get the book, what's the best bet, Mel?
Amazon. It's on Amazon. Yes. Yeah. And it's also at Blue Ridge Books in Waynesville, the Hazelwood section of Waynesville. So they can get it there as well, or to contact us.
Yeah, they can message us on Facebook too if they want us just to, especially if they want a signed copy, then we can sign it and mail that to them.
And so you want to mention the name of the book is Journey of the Heart. And you want to mention the name of the authors? We'll let you give a final plug for it. By Mel, last name, Mel?
Mel Fergenbaum and Lynda Saffell.
Lynda Saffell.
Okay. And if they want to reach you on Facebook, what's the way to do that? Look you up by your name or?
Yes. Yeah, Mentoring with Mel, which is what I'm doing.
There is a page for the book too.
Yeah.
Okay.
On our website.
Journey of the Heart.
Journey of the Heart. So.
And last question, Mel, you mentioned it. The website is what, please?
MC Insights, Inc.
Okay, MC Insights, Inc. And I'd like to thank you both for being my guests this first half hour on the Blaine's World show. I look forward to, I can't say I finished yet, but I did start it. So I look forward to finishing the book.
Well, and what we would ask, Blaine, is when you do finish it, what's very important to us is for you to share with us your experience.
Yeah. And, also, of course, it'll be in Blaine's World as well. So look forward to telling you more about it. Thanks, guys, for being with me on this first half of the show. I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And as Mel works his way out of the studio, let's see, there we go. We'll be welcoming our second guest in just a second. And she's coming on board, but as she works her way into the studio, I'd like to remind you that WPVM's mission is to foster our community through programming that cultivates dialogue to inform and entertain. The station provides the medium for artists, businesses, community leaders, and nonprofits to share their voice on live radio and also on Facebook Live. Listeners are invited to help support WPVM's efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution, and they can do so by going to the website, WPVMFM.org, and looking at the donate option on the upper right-hand side. My second guest is Kit Cramer, who is CEO of the Asheville Chamber of Commerce. Hey, Kit, you can wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world. Okay, and it's my pleasure to have you on the show, Kit, for the first time, even though I've kind of admired the work you've been doing as president of the CEO of the Chamber. Kit is in Asheville now resident. Prior to this, she was president of the International Downtown Association, Washington, D.C., and worked at the Charlotte Chamber for 17 years in all areas of chamber work. She's a former at-large board member of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education and is public information officer for 2 school systems. She has served on the executive committee of the Association of Chambers of Commerce Executives, the Chamber Federation chair on the North Carolina Chamber Board, as well as chairing United Way of Asheville and Buncombe County. That's kind of what, in your spare time, Kit?
Yeah, exactly.
And I should ask you, you won't show you, but if you notice, Kit's wearing roller skates, because how she does what she does, I have no idea. But Kit, quote, in her spare time, currently chairs the United Way of Asheville, Buncombe County. She especially loves school supply drive held in the summer and Women United's book drive for middle schools at Christmas. Kit, you grew up where as a kid?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay. And the question you may have heard me ask the first guest, but as a little girl growing up in Jacksonville, Florida, did you know you always wanted to be a member of the Chamber of Commerce?
No, I remember in 7th grade wanting to be the first female president, though.
Okay,
And
really?
I remember when Shirley Chisholm was running, I was in 7th grade, and I did not want her to win so that I could win. I no longer want to be president of the United States, but I was an inveterate volunteer all through young adulthood into college, and learned as much about what I do today outside the classroom as I did inside the classroom.
I get such a chill when you tell this story, because Shirley Chisholm is one of my favorite people of all time. Her quote is on my wall, and she said, and you know who she was, a lot of people don't, first woman to ever run for president, first Black woman, or whatever. But I don't know if you know the quote, my favorite quote, service is the rent we pay for living on earth.
I love that.
But it's so Charlie Chisholm, it's so so as 7th grade, that's a cool story. So now, when you're in 7th grade, 8th grade in high school, were you active in school politics? Were you a class officer?
I did. I was doing the whole, was the president of my service club, was a cheerleader, was involved in all kinds of things, was in student government in college, I did all kinds of work. And then even as a young adult, once I got out of college, was a huge chamber volunteer. And so I just believe in volunteerism. It's been part of my DNA for as long as I can remember.
But the question is, so when did you drop deciding to want to become president? When did you drop that?
Well, it was kind of funny. I had an old school boss in Charlotte. I was at the Charlotte Chamber for 17 years. And frankly, I stayed there as long as I did because I had opportunities for growth, and both professional, personal, but also because they gave me freedom to be a mom, a working mom.
Very
and
nice.
I kind of demanded it, but it just seemed to be such a right place for me. And it was the best possible training ground because it's quite a large chamber of commerce. And I learned so much from my coworkers but I wanted to wait until my youngest was out of high school. And I remember my boss saying to me, if you wait until then, you'll be too old. And I said, well, thanks for sharing. And then I just went and did it my way anyway.
So how were we lucky to get you into Asheville?
Well, I was I'd left Charlotte to go to the International Downtown Association, and the headhunter that Asheville hired was out of Charlotte, and she
Okay.
knew me from my days in Charlotte and contacted me. And I'd only been in Washington about a year and a half, and things were going super well. And I just said, nope, can't do it, too soon. We're cooking with gas here. And I did not mention it to my husband because he hated DC. Hated it. And I didn't want that pressure at home. So she waited a couple of weeks, contacted me again, and we started to talk. And I knew of Asheville because Mark and I had visited when we lived in Charlotte. It was a beautiful place. I knew that things were happening there. And once we started talking, and once I mentioned it to him, he almost had our bags packed. He was ready to go. And we came down for my first interview was actually a Skype interview. This was before the days of Zoom. It was a Skype interview, and I was intrigued by the volunteers who were involved. And yet I was so busy in my current job, there was only one opportunity for an interview, and they invited me to bring Mark. And it was in San Antonio where there was a meeting. I was in San Antonio at a meeting and ended up coming to Asheville for the interview. And I remember we were sitting at the bar drinking iced tea before we left town. We were at the Indigo Hotel. And Mark had observed many of the interviews, and he said, you don't get this job, we're going to burn this place down on the way out of town. So it was kind of, we just both felt it was the right place for us. So we've been here almost, November will be 12 years, which
Incredible.
is amazing to me. Sometimes it feels like it has flown by, and sometimes it feels like it has been endless. So.
Well, if ever there was a perfect fit for a person like you, I think Asheville seems to be the place. It's like the beauty of it, and you talk about volunteerism, is the fact that there seems to be something in Asheville for everybody. You name it, you're going to be able to find it in Asheville. And talk a little bit then, Kit, about the role of a chamber. And you said something interesting I'll come back to, but the fact that a Chamber of Commerce, for those who don't know what it is, and a lot of people don't.
And some people don't. You're absolutely right.
Right.
I had a young person one time who said, is that like Chamber of Secrets in Harry Potter? So we have a challenge there in terms of the name. Some people know the name and some don't. We're about growing jobs and serving as a voice for business. And we really want to help make it. We're a membership organization. We are not, many people think we're government. We're not. We are funded by member dues, as well as the non-dues revenue that we produce over doing all kinds of projects. In fact, our annual meeting is tonight. So we're very excited about sharing our successes and literally serving as the recruitment arm for business. So we help existing businesses grow. We help that lifestyle business by keeping them up to date. In, I'm giving my husband the head shake. Because I'm doing this at home. Sorry about that.
Well, no, I'm impressed. By the way, to the contrary, we should encourage your husband. It sounds like somebody's doing dishes,
Yes, and we don't need to hear those dishes anymore, do we? But so the chamber is really involved in a lot, but we want the community. Our motto is that we're building community through business. So that's our lens. Our lens is the business lens. And we feel very strongly about that.
And could talk a little bit about the fact that about the chamber's involvement, not only in Asheville, but other chambers versus the political side of things, and I know I came from Bucks County, and there's a lot of contention at the time, that it was a political group. No, it wasn't a political group. It's a business support group. How do you feel about that?
We are not. Now, do we get involved in political issues? We absolutely do.
Well, you have to, right.
But we are nonpartisan. And it's funny how it does not matter what party you're in or what your affiliation is. You think we're the opposite, but we are not. We do not endorse candidates because we have to work with whoever gets elected. And we are not affiliated with any political party. And yes, we do get political though, because there are issues that are going to impact the quality of life in the community. That's kind of our product when we're recruiting, whether it's recruiting people to work here and live here and enjoy this great quality of life we have, or it is trying to recruit a business that will bring jobs at higher wages than we currently have. Asheville and the surrounding community, and in fact, the region, is our product. So we care deeply because we all live here too. And we want this place to be successful. And that's been the story of the Chamber of Commerce. We are at, I guess, 123 years old. Within the next couple of years, we will celebrate our quasquicentennial, our 125th anniversary. And the idea has always been great people with great minds who have great hearts coming together, trying to do what's best for the community. And that has not changed throughout the history of chambers of commerce.
Talk about how large the Asheville Chamber is.
We're the third largest chamber in the state, which is kind of surprising when you think about where we are in the ranking of the size of cities throughout the state. And we're very proud of that role. We've got a higher market penetration than a lot of chambers of our size and composition. And I'm just going to trot this fact out because I can't not do it. In 2019, we were the Chamber of the Year for the country. So I'm very proud of that, as is my staff. And there is a lot that goes into that. A lot of hard work on many fronts, but I'm really proud of our team and of our volunteers who help shape our agenda and help guide us through making this the best community we can make it.
So in terms of number of businesses in the chamber, how many businesses approximately?
1,600, and that represents about 85,000 employees in those 1,600 businesses. And they range from the solopreneur all the way to some of the largest businesses in the community. And it's interesting because we are trying to meet the needs of organizations that have a variety of sizes and compositions, but we're very much we're the organization in town that cares about having a well-balanced economy. And we're not about one particular geographic area or one particular industry. We're about a balance, because we think that balance makes us more recession-proof, more resilient. And so we're not about one particular type of industry.
I'll give you a chance, or maybe I'll put you on the spot here, to give an elevator pitch, if you will. If somebody's listening, and by chance, if they're not a chamber member, why should they join the chamber?
If they're interested in the quality of the community and they have a business, they want to have a voice for that business, regardless of its size. They understand the importance of continuing to grow the economy, whether it's through expansion of existing businesses or attracting new businesses or attracting workforce. Then we're the organization for them, because we are constantly working on the behalf of our members and the community to ensure that we have this well-balanced economy.
I'll let you also give a recommendation, if you would, in terms of people getting involved in the chamber, of actually becoming involved, because I know a lot of people will join an organization and just sit back and do nothing. But I've always told people, in terms of chamber, you get as much as you put into it, or you actually get more than you put into it.
I'm going to argue with you about that.
Please,
though.
go.
I think there is value in a chamber membership if you never set foot in a chamber meeting. It depends on what your need is and what you're trying to accomplish. If you want to support economic development and you think it's important to understand that you cannot sit on your laurels, you must continue to find ways to grow as a community, then be a chamber member. If you want to grow your business to business relationships or business to consumer relationships, we can help with that. You can be a part of our visitor center. You can go to events and meet other business people. If you care about political issues, then you can be a part of that aspect of the work we do around public policy. If you care about the greater economy and you want to understand what's coming, and perhaps you are working on a business model that you need research for, you can come to the chamber for that kind of information. I've used the analogy of the elephant, and sometimes you touch the elephant in different places and you think that's what the chamber does. It's our staff has thought very deliberately about the various ways people end up being in touch with us. And it's different for many different types of groups. And we're very conscientious about thinking through what we're doing for people in those various sectors and are trying to meet those needs. We're not perfect, but we get an awful lot done and are very supportive of business throughout this community.
I guess the point I was trying to make, though, Kit, is the idea that some people I know join chambers and said they get nothing out of it, but they made no effort to see what the chamber offered, how they could be of service, and that's true. You won't get anything out of it unless you take advantage of it,
right?
And you're here to serve people, to help people, and talk a little bit about that with respect to a big problem in Asheville. That Asheville is a great place to live, maybe to work, but a lot of people can't afford to live in Asheville. A lot of people can't afford the wages. And what's the chamber's feeling in terms of even the concept of a living wage?
Well, we've got our focus. If you go to AshevilleChamber.org, you'll see two sides to our website, and one side is chamber membership. The other side is about economic development. If you go to economic development and you look at the AVL 5x5 strategy, our strategy is focused on particular industry sectors that pay higher than average wages, because we have had a perpetual problem here in the mountains with wage rates being lower than they need to be. So we're very deliberately, we are not out recruiting companies that pay less than a living wage. And never have we done that. We are working, so for example, the Pratt & Whitney project is one that we are very proud of, that occurred right smack in the middle of the pandemic. And it pays much more than average wages, is the single largest manufacturing project in Western North Carolina history, is going to create 800 jobs, $650 million in capital investment, which will add to the tax base in this area. And so we're working that project, but we also are working the 15-person project that we've attracted from New York that produces this wonderful food product that will employ people and make a lot of people really happy, but will also be a distinctive addition to our wonderful food scene here. We are equally excited about both projects because they pay more than average wages and they fit the character of the community. We had an event just a couple of weeks ago out at New Belgium Brewing, where we were celebrating the 10-year anniversary of landing New Belgium in this community. And the thing that I love about that project is the marriage of the corporate culture with Asheville's values. We are so lucky to have a company that cares so much about water quality, that they took over an old polluted stockyard, that they uncapped a creek, that they helped fund greenways in the area, that they deliberately wanted to be in an area where it was bikeable to work. It's those types of stories, I think, that are additive to Asheville's culture. Now, all that being said, we're a success story. And as a result, there are a lot of people who want to live here. And we have got to grapple with the challenges of growth. And it makes me crazy when I hear people, we've got this exponential growth. There's a collective freak out whenever there is a discussion about a new apartment building on Merriman Avenue, which occurred several years ago, and everybody swore that we would never be able to drive on that road again. And you wouldn't even notice that it's there anymore. We've got to come to grips with the fact that we are growing. It's not exponential growth. Over the next decade, we're going to grow about 8%, which is less than 1% per year. That is good, steady, quality growth. It's not exponential. And we've got to come to grips with the fact that if we want people, we want young people to be able to live here, if we want people who are working the restaurant industry or who are teachers or firemen or police officers, if we want them to be able to live in this community, we have got to find a way to build more housing. Period. There is a lack of housing, from a very affordable, deeply affordable, to there's a lack of housing all across the inventory. We have a supply and demand problem.
As you said, too, it's a shame because everybody says, yes, we love it, the area to grow. But when somebody wants to build a new housing project, or, then the NIMBY folks come out, it's, it's almost sad, the anger in people, or the upset in people, that it's good for the whole community, but as long as it's not in their backyard, I guess.
Right. It makes me crazy. It literally makes me crazy because in so many cases, we have missed opportunities to add quality housing that is close to where people work, where they could potentially walk to work even. And we have neighbors come out and fight it right and left. And we are making a future for ourselves that is not sustainable. If you've ever lived in a bigger city and had to live out in the suburbs because you couldn't afford to live downtown, and then you began to endure longer and longer and longer commutes, it's because there's not a program of building more density closer to the work centers. We've simply got to recognize that that's where our future is. We've got to become more dense, and dense doesn't mean less livable. It means that you have to structure things a bit differently in order for them to be more functional. And I believe there are ways to do that. And I'm just super frustrated that so many times there's all this pressure placed on our elected officials who have a stated objective of getting more density in order to accommodate growth. And yet they abandon that because of the pressure that they're feeling from neighbors. And I think people get scared with change.
Well, I think that's so true, Kit. You even seeing it, if you can talk a little bit about on Merriman Avenue, that whole, I'm not following it perhaps as close as I should, but Merriman Avenue is very hard to get around on, And so they're trying to improve Merriman Avenue, but I guess as many people want to improve, you also have X number of people don't want the improvement.
Well, it's kind of funny. I live off Charlotte Street.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And Charlotte Street went through the road diet situation. Right. And I remember going and sitting in with the city and listening to, because I was a little skeptical. So you're going to take a 4-lane road and you're going to make it a 3-lane road. And this is supposed to improve the situation. Right. Well, it absolutely has. It has worked. And similarly, when you look at Merriman Avenue, Merriman is, you're not going to take the parking away from the businesses that are right on Merriman Avenue. You get 1 block off of Merriman either way, and you're flat in a neighborhood.
Right.
And it's dangerous the way the speeds at which people travel down Merriman. So the road diet concept is to slow it down, to provide more flexibility through the use of that center lane as a turn lane so that people don't, we have all kinds of wrecks on Merriman right now. I was really pleased that moved through. And I had conversations with a number of business people, some of whom were members of the chamber, but some of whom were not, to say, this has been this is a study I've done. I've lived it over off of Charlotte Street, and I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to work. It's going to work. And it will not surprise me if more traffic doesn't move to Broadway, which was frankly constructed to have a faster and more cars than Merriman does. That would be a natural occurrence that I think could be very healthy for the community in terms of people coming in and trying to get to their jobs every day.
And like I said, a great example was Charlotte, so if we're somewhere in Charlotte, hopefully Merriman, my thing is, it can't be much worse, so anything you do is worth a shot. Let me have you, I guess, in the remaining time here, Kit, kind of predict the future, if you will, or if not predict the future, what do you see happening in Asheville from a business standpoint, at least next 3 to 5 years?
Well, we're going to continue to grow, and I am thankful for that, because there's not much worse of a situation than losing population, and that many of the Rust Belt communities throughout our country are facing. We're not in that situation. We are so fortunate to have quality, steady growth. We live in a wonderful area of the country, but we have got to be good stewards of that wonderful area of the country by doing things like getting more housing under construction as quickly as we can, and not using the excuse of, oh, we're going to damage the character of the community. Well, the only thing that is constant is change. And if we are resistant to change, we forget about the times when we have lost. This was right as I arrived. I came in 2010, and this was after the Volvo plant closed, and lost a slew of jobs. And there was just such concern in the community about that loss. Those types of things happen. Mergers happen, headquarters move, those things happen. That's why you can't just rest on your laurels and think, we're good, leave it the way it is. Things are constantly evolving. We've got to remember that, stop freaking out, and instead take control of those things that we can control, which includes building more for the people that we want to live here, as well as the people who currently live here, who want to get the couple that wants to downsize from a 4-bedroom house. There's no place for them to go right now because there's just not enough housing, which stops up the whole market. But then we also have to do things like make sure that we've got enough childcare for workers and quality childcare. Make sure that we're taking care of our roads and other transportation systems, that we are completing access to broadband all over this community, that we're addressing things like economic mobility. And so that people, we've experienced a lot, you hear a lot about the people who are not doing well here, but there are a lot of people who have done really well. Everyone should be able to do well here. And that means we've got to address economic prosperity.
And I think one of the amazing things to me, Kit, has been the fact that even with COVID, I think Asheville survived amazingly well. I was really worried about it.
Well, so was I. I mean, to the credit of people business owners who are creative and nimble and resilient. And I don't want to ignore the fact that there were people who lost their businesses and their lifetime investment. I mean, I really understand that. But there were so many people who found a way to move forward, and so many organizations that came together to work alongside government to try and find ways to help people through the pandemic. We are super lucky.
Kit, if folks want to find out more about the Asheville Chamber of Commerce, best bet?
AshevilleChamber.org. And there's that membership side. You're welcome to go there and contact one of our great employees who will tell you all about what we do, or come out to one of our events. There's an events calendar on the website that you can access. There are many events that are free. There are some that have fees attached to them. They're cheaper if you're a member. So we encourage membership. We welcome you to check us out.
Okay, I'd like to thank you for being my guest the second half hour on the BLAINESWORLD Show, Kid. Also, Mel Fergenbaum and Lynda Saffell for being my guests the first half hour. Also, to Cappy Pizzetti, my producer. Look forward to having you join me next Wednesday here at 9 a.m. on WPVM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina. You can also find us on Facebook. See you then.